Where can I find free wood for making wood bowls? Hi, I'm Kent and welcome to Turn a Wood Bowl. Today we're going to talk about how to find free wood for turning wood bowls. Now, you may be a woodworker like I am, and if you did woodworking before you did wood turning, you might be thinking, well, I need some wood to turn, so I'll go to the store. I'll go to the hardware store or the lumber yard and I'll get a chunk of wood and I'll bring it back and I'll turn it into a bowl. Well, you're going to be a little bit disappointed because there really aren't many large pieces of wood to be used or to be bought at a lumber yard, or traditional lumber yard at least, that can be turned into a nice size bowl. So for instance, if you want to make a beautiful live edge pecan bowl like this, you're not going to find this piece of wood at a lumber yard or a hardware store. You're going to need to go out and get it yourself. The wood that we're going to be using for turning bowls is different than traditional woodworking in a couple different aspects. And one of those is the fact that it's really not available in most stores. The other aspect that I get a lot of questions about is the dryness of the wood. Now, I get this question all the time. I've got some logs that I got from a neighbor or whatever, and I want to turn them into bowls. How long should I wait before they're completely dry? Well, that question is actually revealing another issue. And the other issue is you don't have to wait for them to be completely dry. And I don't know how long it's going to take to dry because everybody's environment's different, but that's a whole other issue. You don't have to wait for them to dry. So you can turn a completely wet green bowl blank or a piece of wood. You could cut a tree down and it could have been living earlier today and you could put it on a lathe and it'll be wet. It'll turn beautifully, and actually green wood is some of the best wood to turn. But the myth is that you need to have that wood super dry like the lumber that we're used to using in woodworking projects. That's completely a myth. You don't have to have that. You can turn green wood, you can turn wood that's partially wet, you can turn wood that's completely dry. Now, if it's completely dry, you're probably going to need to sharpen your tools a little bit more, but it's no big deal. You can still turn it. So we can turn any stage of moisture content of wood on a lathe. That's not an issue. The issue is getting the wood in the size that you want and the shape you want and the configurations that you want. And the only way you're going to do that is to go out and get it yourself, because this wood isn't available. Yeah, there are a couple specialty places that prepare bowl blanks, but even that, they're making the decisions as far as where the center of the balance of the bowl blank is, where they're cutting from the section of the tree and how it's prepared. It's all done. All that creative work has already been done, and you're only left with what you get and when you put it on the lathe. When you go get your own wood, you can pretty much do whatever you want as far as design, selecting where you're going to cut it from the tree and so on. Okay, so where can we find free wood? Well, a great source for free wood are the people that deal with trees day in and day out, and these are tree service people. If you find a local tree service in your community, there's a good chance that they're dealing with the tree probably right this minute. They're either cleaning a tree up, cutting a tree down, limbing a tree. They've got trees all around them. So if you can get in touch with them, go talk to them and see what they've got available and find out how they process the wood that they have to take in. There might be a chance that you can grab some of that wood, or if they're in your neighborhood and you happen to see them, you might have the opportunity for them to drop off a log in your front yard that you can use for bowls. So that's a great source, tree services. Now, the second source to look for trees and free wood are municipalities. Towns and cities have to deal with trees just like the private homeowners, but they deal with the trees that are on city property, and they're dealing with trees on a regular basis. So there again, find out who's in charge of maintaining trees in your town or your city and see what they do with the waste from the trees, and you might be surprised what you can come by. The other great thing about having connections with a tree service or the people that work with trees in your town or city is you could potentially get a whole variety of different tree species to potentially work with. Even if it's small pieces, it's worth trying and seeing how that wood turns on your lathe so you have the experience of working with that particular tree species, and you never know what you'll come across. You'll be surprised what kind of trees grow in your community, especially in ornamental situations in people's yards. Okay, so the third source are power companies. Power companies need to regularly clear back trees along their power lines, and they do this frequently. I was fortunate enough several years ago to be coming home and I saw a crew working on a power line near our house. And I went up and talked with them. They were taking trees down and big limbs and that, and they had a beautiful big log. And I asked them, what are you guys doing with that? And they're like, well, actually, we're taking that to a site that we have to drive 30 minutes to, and we pay them $40 per load to burn. And I was like, what? You're going to burn that? And for them, it's a big hassle to haul this wood, and that's a big part of their job is basically just driving and dumping off wood and debris, and they have to pay for that. So it's a big help if they can offload some of that. So they were able to drop those logs directly in my yard, and it was a great win-win. So 3 sources that are really, really good is tree services, municipalities, and power companies. If you see them working anywhere, take a moment, see if it's safe, stop and talk with them and see what they do. It's worth the conversation, and the worst they can tell you is no. Okay, the next source of free wood are construction sites and developments. When a new house goes in or a whole development goes in, a lot of times the developer or the homeowner will remove a tree or 2 or many trees, and they typically will cut those down to a small size and pile them up, letting them dry out and then burning them at some point, which is pretty sad to think about. But that might be a great opportunity to access some wood as well. Again, see if you can talk to either the workers that are working with trees or talk to the property owner and see if you can use some of the wood that you find from a development or a construction site. Another great place to look for free wood for wood turning are landfills. Many times the district or the county, they don't want that green material going into their landfill because it's very recyclable. They can shred it and mulch it and then redistribute it. They can use it to fill in ditches or fill in different projects and use it for water management. They even give it out to the community. If you need mulch, you can go back and get some in a lot of cases. But before that gets turned into mulch, usually there's a drop-off site where logs and branches in that are dropped. You might be, if you get a chance to talk to the people there in charge, you might have the opportunity to be able to go in there and get some pieces of wood out that you can turn on the lathe. So that's worth checking out. Now, another resource for trees are storms. I know this personally because I live in a storm-prone area of the world, and we get hit by hurricanes every few years. And even a hurricane coming within 100 miles of us can bring enough winds that'll knock down trees. So it's frequent after storms and after major storms like we have that there are trees everywhere that have come down. Sometimes there's so many trees that come down, there's absolutely no way in the world to process all of them. And that, I think, is also sad. I wish there was some way that those could all be utilized and milled into usable lumber, because there's so many millions of board feet that go to waste in some of these storms that hit our region in the southeast of the United States when the hurricanes come through. But that being said, storms, even a windstorm, a tornado, or a heavy thunderstorm can knock down trees. Now, you might not see anything in your yard, but if you're out and about after a storm, you might come across some trees down. Again, talk to the people that own the property and see if there's anything that might be available to turn. Now, you might not have thought of this one, but you can actually get on the computer and potentially find free wood. Go to Craigslist or to Facebook Marketplace and see if anybody's listing free wood in your area. A lot of times people take down trees and they don't know what to do with the wood and they just want to get rid of it. So sometimes they'll even stack it up in the ditch, which is the best. You can just drive by and pick it up. You don't even have to talk to anybody. But many times they'll have big piles of this and they're still looking to get rid of it. So they'll put a free classified ad on Craigslist or Facebook. So you might find sources for free wood right there. Now, if you do live in a cold climate, you might find that free wood goes pretty quickly, or you might find those people actually charging a little bit for that wood because most people use it for firewood. But there again, if it's an interesting tree species, you might want to spend a little bit of money to get a truckload of wood that can be turned into wood bowls. If it's a walnut or a cherry or something of that nature. Many times in regions where people are looking for firewood, they don't really care about the tree species too much. It might be some not so great trees to turn, but you may come across some really nice trees that might cost you a few bucks to have the entire tree, and you can go and process all of that into bowl planks. So that's worth considering. Another source to look at are lumber mills and people that do firewood. Guess what they don't like? And guess what the mills don't like? they don't like crotches. And crotches are beautiful wood to turn, and they can make the most amazing bowls, especially if you do a natural edge or a live edge, or even if you do a regular rimmed bowl, they can be amazing with a grain pattern inside. Why don't they like them? Well, the firewood people don't like them because they don't split very easily. When they they want to split a log quickly and break it into a bunch of pieces of firewood and be done. But when they try to break a crotch, all of that grain merging in the center of that crotch make it so that it doesn't split very easily. So they will literally throw those off into a pile. There's a good chance if you can find a firewood processing place, they may just have a pile of crotches that you can go have as much as you want. The same's true of the lumber mills. They want to make nice, beautiful, straight boards, so they're not so interested in the crotches all the time, and you may find some available there as well. So check out lumber mills and people that make firewood for a living. Okay, last but not least, I'm going to suggest that you go talk to a local cabinet maker or other woodworkers. Now, if you've gone through this entire list and there's absolutely no resources for you to find good pieces of wood to make bowl blanks from, then you might be in an area of the world where there just isn't a lot of wood or a lot of trees in your I was going to say neck of the woods, because that's a phrase we use, but if you don't have a neck of the woods, then there's no woods, so you can't say in your neck of the woods. Anyway, there are places, and I do have people that communicate with me that live in Australia in very dry climates. I have people that contact me from the Middle East that live in towns and cities that literally have no trees. They may have a sprinkling of a couple trees in people's yards, but that's it. And they're usually small and they're not readily available. It usually takes a very large amount of tree growth to have trees falling down, trees that need to be maintained, that makes it easy to find these pieces. So not every place in the world has access to trees. And that brings up another point. If you think about this for a second, if you can look out your window and if you can see a tree, one tree, or if you're lucky enough to see many trees, then you really need to count yourself as being blessed, because trees are not everywhere in the world. So one of my last suggestions is to go to a cabinet maker or a woodworker. Now, why would you want to do that? Just get small scraps. They may be working with some beautiful woods, and usually they do. There might be some beautiful walnuts, some oak or cherry, or whatever woods are common and highly sought after for making cabinets and furniture and things like that. And there may be small cutoffs that they're not going to use. What you can do, and it's something that I don't do personally, but you can do segmented turnings, where you can take those small pieces and they can be cut geometrically to make different rings. And those rings can be glued together and then stacked up and shaped into a bowl, and that can be turned as a final bowl. Now that is an option for you if you have no other tree source available to you. But I'm guessing that those first several options are going to yield plenty of free wood for you. The most popular way to get free wood is to make it known that you're a wood turner. As soon as people know that you're turning wood, you'll be shocked at how much wood will come out of the woodwork, so to speak. So what will happen is you'll find that your neighbor or your friend will find out that somebody's got a tree coming down, and they're going to call you and you say, well, someone's got a tree and this one's coming down. You may become inundated with the amount of free wood that you have available to you. So just be careful what you wish for. But the best way to really get a lot of opportunities is to make people know that you're looking for wood to turn. Which brings up a really good point, is if somebody gives you wood, or somebody is the middle person that helps you find wood, it's a great idea to turn a nice bowl from that wood and just give it to them as a thank you. There's a good chance that if you do that, you're probably going to get a lot more wood and or opportunities coming from that person in the future. One thing I want to add to this, be really careful. Some people think that if you're going to take wood for making a bowl, that you're going to come cut their tree down. Unless you're experienced at cutting trees down and you're well insured, I would make it clear to anybody that you're going to get wood from that you're not a tree service and that you're not going to fell the tree for them and take on all those risks and liabilities, unless that's something that you do. If you do that, then great, knock yourself out. But just make it clear to them that you're not doing this as a full tree service, and that you're basically going to be taking pieces of the wood and turning them into bowls. The other thing to keep in mind, that a lot of the trees coming out of people's yards have been there for years, and people, humans, like to nail things to trees. They like to put a nail in there and hang up a clothesline or tie a wire around her and that. So you need to be aware, especially at the section that is at reachable height on that tree, that there could be metal in there. So be cautious when you're cutting that wood. There could be some obstacles in there for you or some surprises. So don't be surprised if you hit a nail or a screw or something when you're cutting the lower sections of the trees. All right, guys, there's a ton of different ways of finding free wood for making wood bowls. Now, if you have an additional way or another way that I didn't mention here for acquiring free wood for making wood bowls, do me a huge favor and leave a comment below so everybody can read that. It may help somebody out. It may help them find some free wood as well so they can turn some wood bowls. I want to help you guys out. I want to help you guys have the best experience turning wood bowls. That's why I'm here, and that's what I'm doing with this channel and with my website, turnawoodbowl.com. And I appreciate you helping out. Do me a huge favor if you didn't already, click that like button below the screen and like this video. It helps this video and helps the channel, and I greatly appreciate that. Thank you. All right, guys, until next time, as I always like to say, happy turning.